Now, thank you. Now, at a time when Donald Trump and Mike Pence are embracing bigotry and bluster and using fear to stir up votes, our guest tonight is a champion of the values that have always made America great. Values like equality, justice, and the equal dignity of each and every American. For those of you who live just across the Potomac River in Virginia, a lot of you here, well, you've come to know him well during his more than 20 years in public life. He served as a city councilman, mayor, lieutenant governor, governor, and United States senator. He's worked as a Jesuit missionary, a civil rights attorney, and a teacher. And now, he's helping make history as Hillary Clinton's vice presidential nominee. He is the embodiment of what it means to be a public servant. And I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to watching him debate that other vice presidential nominee next month. Because while Mike Pence pushed a discriminatory law in Indiana that created a national firestorm and, by the way, tanked his own state's economy, as governor of Virginia, our guest tonight protected state workers from discrimination, ensuring that some of you in this very room tonight could go to work each and every day, not having to hide who you are. And while Mike Pence voted against non-discrimination protections, against our right to serve openly in the military, and even against hate crime laws, our guest tonight voted to protect our community from discrimination, and today he's a co-sponsor of both the Equality Act and the Student Non-Discrimination Act. And while Mike Pence and Donald Trump just campaigned across town at the so-called Values Voter Summit, our guest tonight is running with Hillary Clinton on the most pro-equality agenda of any presidential ticket in the history of our country. This man has been our partner in the trenches. He knows what it means to treat all people with dignity and with respect. And he has the experience and the determination and leadership needed to get things done. So now, please join me in welcoming the leader we can count on to protect our progress, build on all our victories, and keep moving equality forward, the next Vice President of the United States, Senator Tim Kaine.
Man, you look beautiful. Hello, HRC. HRC, I like the sound of that. HRC. And thank you for your terrific welcome. What an amazing opportunity to be with you. My wife, Ann, is with me tonight, who stepped down as Secretary of Education so she could campaign full-time for Hillary Clinton. Please give my life partner a round of applause. And we are so thrilled to be here with so many friends from around the Commonwealth of Virginia. How many Virginians in the house? And friends from around the country. You do me a great honor by inviting me tonight, and I want to thank Chad for his spectacular leadership, the invitation to be with you, and his generous introduction. Please give Chad another big round of applause. He is a transformational leader. I know the elected officials and others have already been acknowledged, but I want to thank them for coming. Representatives from the Obama administration, especially Secretary Fanning, what a treat to have you here. The history you're making is very, very important for our nation, your leadership, your service. And a very special and personal shout out to whoever decided that I would speak before and not after the great John Lewis. Thank you for doing that for me. Thank you for doing that for me. He's an impossible act to follow, but more importantly, as we know, and I'll talk about him a little bit later, he is an American hero, and I'm always happy to be in a room with John Lewis. Finally, thanks to you, the Human Rights Campaign, you started in 1980 with one desk, a phone that didn't really work, and $9 in the bank. That's how you started. Look at how far you have come. Look at how far you have come. You're America's largest organization dedicated to the civil rights of LGBTQ Americans, and you have been on the forefront of some truly historic wins. Thanks to you, your leadership, your advocacy, the laws of the land are closer to reflecting in our hearts what we know to be true, that every American deserves dignity, respect, no matter who they are or who they love, and that is largely, our advances are largely because of you. I celebrate you and I admire you for the work that you're doing. Now, I'm proud to note that it was a Virginian, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the fundamental ideal into the Declaration of Independence: all men are created equal. Now, we know that Jefferson wasn't living according to that ideal, and we also know in 1776 nobody was living according to that ideal. But our founders, even though they couldn't live it, they were wise enough to set out equality as a North Star, the guiding point for the growth of this amazing nation. They couldn't live it, but they were smart enough to set it out there. If you have sailors in the room, you know you can orient toward a North Star. You may never get there, but you set it out there as your guide. The entire history of our nation has been a story of following that North Star. From the shedding of blood to end slavery, to the gradual widening of equality, our understanding of equality, to include different races and religions, immigrants, people with disabilities. You know that it took us 144 years to realize that word equality meant that women should be allowed the right to vote. 144 years. And 96 years later, we're now on the verge of realizing that the equality promise also means that a woman can be president of the United States. How many strong women do we have in this audience tonight? And how many strong men do we have who are excited to stand up and support a strong woman to be president of the United States? And this is the journey we're on, and we're all on it together. Every one of us has the power to move our country closer to that North Star, but that demands that we avoid complacency and that we wake up each day committed to the self-evident truth that all people have equal worth and dignity. In our time, the fight, your fight, our fight for LGBT equality has been central in that ongoing story and struggle. The men and women who gathered at the Stonewall Inn 47 years ago, they may not have known what they were starting, but because of what they did and because of all those who carried their work forward with courage, with sacrifice, with grace, we live in a different and better America today. Eric Fanning is the secretary of an army where he could not have openly served just 5 years ago. Just 5 years ago. 18 years after Matthew Shepard was killed in Laramie, LGBTQ Americans have federal protection from hate crimes across this land. And we know and celebrate that marriage equality, after such a lengthy struggle is now a law of this land. Every zip code, every state, every city, every county, every community. It's the law of the land. And we're not going backwards. We're not going backwards. Every person in this room, you've had a hand in moving our country forward. You've changed this nation. And tonight I want to reflect just a moment on how my LGBTQ friends have changed me. I first became conscious of the struggle for LGBTQ equality when I was a student at the University of Missouri in the late 1970s. Got some Missouri folks, all right, you're going to know this story. The university I attended had ruled that the Student Gay Association couldn't meet in the student union, couldn't meet on campus. And so they were forced to meet in a church off campus, a church basement. They filed a lawsuit. That lawsuit percolated its way through the courts. And when I was a student at the University of Missouri, the organization won, and the university was forced to allow them to meet at the student union. So one night, these students gathered at the local church basement where they had been forced to meet off campus, and they marched to the student union to hold their first on-campus meeting. I wish I could say that the Mizzou students welcomed them and cheered for them and supported them, but I can't. No, rowdy students, many of them drunk, lined the street and threw rocks and bottles at these peaceful marchers who had obtained the right to do what other student groups do. That was a moment of consciousness raising for me. I don't know how anybody could witness a sickening incident like that and not be changed by it, and I was changed by it. It made me angry, and it made me even more convinced that I wanted to stand up and fight for what was right. So I went to law school, I became a civil rights lawyer, and then an elected official in Richmond, Virginia, and I advocated for LGBT equality in many ways: employment, housing, hate crimes. My first executive action as governor of Virginia was to prohibit employment discrimination in state government on the basis of sexual orientation. Executive order number 1. But let me be honest. Let me just not be a politician, but just a candid person and friend. As a devout Catholic, for a long time, while I was battling for LGBTQ equality, I believed that marriage was something different. I knew gay couples as friends in my neighborhood. I knew them to be great neighbors. I knew them to be great parents to beautiful kids. And I saw them struggle with antiquated and even hostile adoption laws. But I had a difficult time reconciling that reality, what I knew to be true from the evidence of my own life, with the teachings of the faith that I had been raised in for my entire life. Then in 2005, my last year as lieutenant governor, the Virginia legislature began the process of pushing a constitutional amendment to limit marriage to heterosexual couples. And I asked the proponents of the amendments to explain why this needed to be in the Bill of Rights in the Virginia Constitution. Some told me candidly, this is what they said, that they were doing it because they wanted to make Virginia a place that LGBTQ folks would find so hostile that they would decide to leave and go elsewhere or move elsewhere. And that was bad enough, but others said to me something that in some ways was even worse. They said, "You're right, this is a really bad idea, but if we can make our base happy on this, then we'll have latitude to do some other good things, make the LGBTQ community in Virginia the sacrificial lamb." When I heard the proponents describe their motivation, it became a lot clearer to me where I should stand on this question. So I was proud then as governor in 2006 to fight alongside many of the people in this room against the ballot initiative. My wife and I went and stood on the steps of the governor's mansion, and we invited her parents. Her dad had been the lieutenant governor from 1970 to 74. They were now about 83, 84 years old. And we stood on the steps of the governor's mansion and we said, we're Democrats and Republicans, and between the two couples, there's about 70 years of combined marriage here, And we're here to tell you that our marriages are not threatened by gay marriage. They are not threatened by this, and the state should reject it. The state should reject discrimination. I was awful proud of my Republican father-in-law and mother-in-law, but despite the best efforts in 2006, that amendment passed. It was narrow, but it passed, and it was a dark day for our state. But the people that I met in that fight, all the brave people standing up for their families, and my own family, my three children helped me see the issue of marriage equality as what it was really about, treating every family equally under law, orienting toward that principle that we proclaim to be our fundamental principle. When I left the office of governor in Virginia in 2010, I left with a feeling of unfinished business on LGBT equality and on some other issues too. In a public career, there's always unfinished business because there's always more good work to be done. But the LGBT equality issue really stuck with me. And then the unexpected happened. In 2011, a senator in Virginia that we all loved, who was going to be in there for a long time, decided not to run again. And there was an open Senate seat. And I had a chance to reflect and decide I would run. And I had a chance to do my part to correct the injustice I saw in Virginia and correct the injustice that I saw all around this country. I was proud to join my Senate colleagues in an amicus brief in the Supreme Court supporting full marriage equality. And how happy I was on the day the court declared yet again that equal is equal, just as love is love. How happy I was. Because sometimes in life you don't get a chance to finish the unfinished business, but I've been given an opportunity to do it. And you know, like many people of faith, and including maybe many in this room, my support for marriage equality now, my full, complete, unconditional support for marriage equality is at odds with the current doctrine of the church that I still attend. But I think that's going to change too. I think that's going to change too. And I think it's going to change because my church also teaches me about a creator in the first chapter of Genesis who surveys the entire world, including mankind, and said, "It is very good. It is very good." Pope Francis famously said, "Who am I to judge?" And to that I want to add, who am I to challenge God for the beautiful diversity of the human family? I think we're supposed to celebrate it, not challenge it. Today, I do have the honor of joining Hillary Clinton on what the Human Rights Campaign has called the most pro-equality ticket in history. And that's great, and I hope the next ticket is even more pro-equality, and we need to keep doing that ticket after ticket, getting better and better. I've known Hillary a long time. I've had the chance to see her up close over the course of this campaign, campaigning for her for months and months and months before she added me to the ticket 7 weeks ago. I'm going to tell you, she's the real deal. She's the real deal. She's got the experience and the vision, the passion and compassion to make a real difference for families across the nation. And she'll do everything she can to ensure that every LGBTQ person or family has a fair chance to achieve their dreams. That's what she's done for her entire career, like voting to boost funding to combat HIV and AIDS here at home and around the world, so that more people, including LGBTQ people, can stay healthy and can stay strong. It's a fight she took to the global stage as Secretary of State. Chad mentioned it. We all remember her speech in Geneva when she declared, quote, "Gay rights are human rights and human rights are gay rights." And she was right about that. And make no mistake, and I'm sure you know this, I'm a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. When America leads on LGBTQ equality, that matters worldwide. I have a lot of Irish friends who told me the Irish citizenry voting by referendum to improve marriage equality, that was very significantly inspired by your work and our work here in the United States. And in other places where LGBTQ activists are under attack, The work that you are doing is keeping a candle of hope alive that will not be extinguished. I called a very dear friend I have who is an LGBTQ activist in Turkey 3 days ago. In the aftermath of a failed coup attempt, there's efforts to not just go after those who perpetrated the coup, but going after all of civil society. And LGBTQ activists in Turkey are under the thumb of some very, very oppressive policies. But again, the work that you do and the leadership shown in the United States keeps that candle of hope alive. It is so very, very important. It is so very, very important that we keep this going. She told you last year when she was here, Hillary did, she's going to keep this fight going when she's president, overseas, and at home. A Clinton Kaine administration will push for the passage of the Federal Equality Act to ensure that all of the non-discrimination provisions in law, not one or the other, but every last one of them, applies to prohibit discrimination on the grounds of sexual orientation and protects LGBTQ. And I hope that many of you are going to be in a room with Hillary Clinton when she signs that Equality Act into law. We'll take on drug companies and cap out-of-pocket expenses so that people with HIV can get medication they need at a price they can afford. We'll take on any stigmatization of HIV criminalization laws that still exist here and around the world. We're going to focus on LGBT youth who have a difficult time finding acceptance at home or at school. Last week, we rolled out a mental health proposal for the campaign, and central to that proposal was the need to focus on the needs of young people, specifically the needs of young LGBTQ folks who are realizing who they are and seeking to escape bullying and stigmatization. No young person in this nation or in this world should ever be made to question their own self-worth, and we're going to let young people know that we love them exactly as they are, and we support them so they can thrive as their true selves without apology and without hiding and without stigma. The attack at the Pulse nightclub in June did something I hoped would never happen. The worst day of my life was the shooting at Virginia Tech in April of 2007 when I was governor. And after that happened, this is an odd thing to say, after that happened, I hoped it would always be the worst shooting. I hoped there would never be an incident of violence that would eclipse the loss of those 32 beautiful young people and professors, but that shooting in Orlando now is the worst incidence of gun violence in our history. We got to acknowledge who was targeted in the attack. LGBTQ Americans, with a special devastation of our Latino community in Orlando. For all the progress we've made, it is still too dangerous to be living as LGBTQ in this country. The Orlando community's sense of security was shattered, although also the sense of community filled in very immediately, showing the great resilience. And it reminded me of the same thing happening in Blacksburg. And it reminds me that that pain never goes away. It won't go away for families in Orlando, just like it didn't go away for families in Blacksburg. So what we all need to do is ask what Congressman Lewis asked in June: how many more mothers, how many more fathers need to shed tears of grief before we do something? And the answer should be clear to every American: none, zero. We've got to do something to fight the scourge of gun violence in this country. And that's why Hillary and I are committed to, have pushed, and will push for common sense reforms to keep dangerous weapons out of the hands of dangerous people. Enough is enough, and we need to do this once and for all. And with all of these issues, keeping families safe, expanding education and housing, job opportunities for the American people, when Congress fails to take action, Hillary Clinton and I will act. We're going to do everything we can to build an economy that works for everybody, not just those at the top. We're going to keep our own military strong, but also we understand that much of our strength in this century is the strength of alliances. We're not going to shred alliances. We're going to shore up and build up and grow alliances. And I urge you to go onto our website, hillaryclinton.com, or read the new book that we put out. We put out a book telling you what we will do if we're in office. The book is called Stronger Together. Stronger Together. Stronger Together. Donald Trump put out a book when he decided to run for president, and his book is called Crippled America. Crippled America. Stronger together. Optimistic, upbeat, can-do, patriotic. There are no problems we can't solve if we get around the table. That's our vision. That's our vision. Donald Trump's vision is crippled America. So take a look at that book or our website at plans we have to build a future where everybody can contribute. And I'm also going to do something a bit unusual. I'm going to urge you to visit our opponent's website too. Go to Donald Trump's position page. Search for an LGBTQ agenda. Or maybe I can save you the time. There isn't one. There isn't one. No mention. It's invisible. It's a non-issue. Now, if you go to the store part of the website, you will find a shirt marketed at your community that you can pay him for. Asking for your money for the shirt, asking for your vote, but LGBTQ equality, it's a non-issue. Here's what we do know. Donald Trump has stated clearly that he'll appoint very conservative judges to the Supreme Court who would overturn marriage equality and set us back in so many other ways, from women's health care access to environmental justice to immigration reform. His proposed list of justices, he actually put out a proposed list, includes one who has spoken publicly about allowing school clubs to disallow LGBTQ members. I don't know why, I never thought I'd be talking about this in the last 60 days of a presidential campaign, but our opponent praises Vladimir Putin, a guy who persecutes LGBT Russians, for great leadership. Great leadership. Running your economy into the ground, persecuting journalists, persecuting LGBTQ Russians, invading other nations and violating international law. Leadership? If you do not understand the difference between leadership and dictatorship, you wouldn't pass a 5th grade civics exam, you're no leader, and you shouldn't be President of the United States. Donald Trump opposes basic protections from discrimination for transgender Americans. And as Chad said, when he attacks women, people of color, immigrants, Muslims with his dangerous rhetoric, he's attacking members of the LGBTQ community and trying to tear our nation apart. Yet he wants you to believe that he cares about you and encourages you to buy a t-shirt. If you're still not convinced, look at who Donald Trump wants by his side if he becomes president, vice presidential nominee Mike Pence. Mike Pence is a guy who believes marriage equality will cause, quote, a societal collapse. He insulted brave LGBT soldiers protecting our freedom overseas. And of course, he ran a one-man crusade to allow Indiana businesses acting in the public commercial sphere to discriminate against LGBTQ Americans. Yet Donald Trump saw this and decided, this is the person that I want helping me govern this country. Brought him into the inner circle to develop the agenda, run the government, and shape our nation's future. The Trump campaign has been driven by these sorts of views. Now, in the last 60 days, no matter how much press spokespeople may try to make us forget that he said offensive things and about his anti-equality policies, I think we won't forget, because the great writer Alice Walker once said, "No person is your friend who demands your silence or denies your right to grow." Donald Trump is no friend to this community, and he's no friend to the value of equality. So when he says he'll be, quote, better for the gays, do you believe him? When he promises to protect the LGBTQ community, do you believe him? Donald Trump's unqualified and temperamentally unfit to be the President of the United States, and we can't afford to let his proposals anywhere near the Oval Office. Anywhere near the Oval Office. Presidential elections are always a choice between two visions for our country, a choice between two candidates. But this year it's a little bit different, maybe more existential. It's also a choice between two visions of our country. In fact, I've been saying that as broad as the differences are between the candidates, election is about something even bigger. This election, 2016, is about America looking in the mirror and deciding what is it that we see there. That's what this election is. Are we orienting toward that North Star of equality that we said would be our yardstick? Are we on track to move forward, or as we used to say in Honduras, adelante no atrás, forward not back, adelante no atrás. November 8 isn't just about where we're going, it's about who we are. And I'll tell you who I think we are, a country that chooses love over hate, that builds on the progress we've made instead of going backward, that tells every single one of our young LGBTQ citizens that their president and their vice president and their government accepts them, cherishes them, and will fight for them. That's who we are. That's who we are. Together, all of us will do the work we can to move our nation closer to that fundamental idea and become that more perfect union. That was the other amazing thing that was said by our framers, that sort of nonsensical phrase, to form a more perfect union. Well, what does that mean? You can't be more perfect than perfect, but they also understood that even if we fully achieved our ideals in real time, our lack of omniscience, our lack of wisdom would be apparent to a next generation, and it would be the next generation's duty to make us more perfect, to orient toward that ideal. So I ask you, with 59 days left, just 59 days, and here's a tip, if you ever want to be in a presidential ticket, just join in the last 100 days. Skip the whole 18-month campaign. That's what I've shown my intelligence by just getting on, here in the last 12 weeks. I'm amazed when Donald Trump makes fun of Hillary Clinton's stamina and energy, because I got added to the ticket 100 days out, and I'm already getting lapped by her. I can't imagine the stamina and energy it takes to run this campaign for 18 months. This is one determined lady. But we've got 59 days to go and not a moment to waste. I know many of you have probably already engaged to volunteer with the campaign, but if you haven't and if you'd like to, all you have to do is take out your phone and text together to 47246. 47246, and I guarantee within about 35 seconds, there will be an outreach to you to gather you into this campaign, into this cause that's about that fundamental American value. You can also go to HillaryClinton.com and tell friends and family to do the same. There are moments for celebration. Tonight is one of those moments, but there are never moments for rest. Across this country, we see anti-LGBTQ efforts like North Carolina's HB2 bill. We see a push for conversion therapy for minors, which is so offensive to me, not just as a candidate for vice president, but as a father and a human being. We've got Donald Trump and Mike Pence steps away from the White House. So with the stakes so high, there are moments for celebration, but there are no moments for rest. We can't and we won't take progress for granted. We can't and we won't sit on the sidelines. I think this is going to be a close election. We're looking pretty well in the polls right now, but folks, Hillary Clinton's trying to do something that's never been done. I bet everybody in this room, in your own way, has tried to do something that's never been done. I bet all of you in this room, in your own way, probably multiple times, have wanted to do something and had somebody look you in the eye and tell you, I don't think you can do it. Sometimes that was an enemy, and sometimes it was a friend who didn't want you to get hurt. Hillary is trying to do something that's never been done. It's been a season of surprises. We live in a post-Citizens United world. It is a tough political climate. It's going to be a close election, and the LGBTQ vote in so many of our battleground states can be the difference between victory and defeat. And that's why I'm here to ask you, let's use every day, every hour, every minute to organize. Future generations, current generations, citizens in this country and around the world are depending on us, and we can't let them down. And on an election day, I know that we won't let them down with your help. Thanks so much, Human Rights Campaign, for having me. Thanks for your great leadership. I admire you, and I look forward to great work together in the future. Thanks so very much.